Welcome to the Veroscope analysis of Madeleine McCann and Kate and Gerry McCann's press conferences. Today we're going to be going through their initial and earliest press conferences. There are two of them which we're going to be analysing. This is the second one. If we have a quick look at the actual forensic linguistic markup document, this is the map key. If you have time later on, pause the video and read how the map key works. And if you've been looking at the last 20 or so videos where we've been learning about statement analysis and forensic linguistics, if you see similarities in the Madeleine Soto case, please do make your observations known in the comments. So let's begin with the first interview after the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Kate, and this is Kate McCann, if you don't know her already, and this is Gerry. Their narrative is that Madeleine has been kidnapped by a unknown person.
Words cannot describe the anguish and despair that we are feeling as the parents of our beautiful daughter Madeleine. We request that anyone who may have any information related to Madeleine's disappearance, no matter how trivial, contact the Portuguese police and help us get her back safely. Please, if you have Madeleine, let her come home to her mummy, daddy, brother and sister. As everyone can understand how distressing the current situation is, we ask that our privacy is respected to allow us to continue assisting the police in their investigation. Thank you.
Okay, so it's obviously very traumatic and very early on in the disappearance. So we have to bear in mind the trauma that the parents are going through. But let's analyse the statement from what we have. We have very little baseline because we're working off their very first statement. So Gerry says, words cannot describe the anguish and despair that we are feeling. Okay, so the anguish and despair and his inability to describe his emotions we note as being slightly unusual. So he's saying that they're feeling something and it's the anguish and despair. So the article "the" is creating distance from the emotion. And also he's stating that words cannot describe what they're feeling. So it appears to be a written statement and has the linguistic architecture of a pre-planned written statement. Nothing unusual in that per se. However, words cannot describe. So inability to describe the feelings that they should be feeling in the narrative of a kidnapping. The anguish and despair creates distance from the feeling. And also we note that there's no individual feeling, it's a group feeling. As the parents of, in forensic linguistics, we note unnecessary language. So in goes a flag. Individual flags mean nothing of themselves per se, so we look for clusters and superclusters. So when we put a flag in to the statement, we're not saying that this in particular has enormous meaning. We're just recognizing that it might do, and we're recognizing that it is a known pattern which we put the flag into. So here we have unnecessary language of our beautiful daughter Madeleine. So we note that we have the formal full name for the first time that Madeleine is introduced into the statement. We have slight unnecessary language across the whole sentence. We request formal language not showing the urgency and horror and trauma of the situation. We request that anyone who may have any information minimization related to Madeleine's disappearance. So here we have Madeleine's disappearance becoming its own event, and also it is different than the kidnapping narrative. So we would definitely note this as concern. Madeleine's disappearance. It's as if she has agency over what has happened to her. So we put in a flag. No matter how trivial, this is the language of typical police missing persons appeals. So they're adopting the language of police forces. Contact the Portuguese police. So we notice that he's removed themselves from who to contact, but to contact the Portuguese police, not the police, but the Portuguese police, and help us get her back safely. Typically in missing persons cases this early on, in authentic parents, we will see the main concern to be for the child as opposed to helping us. So we would put a flag in and note it. In emergency calls, we also see similar patterns where the priority of need we note, and in authentic emergency calls, the priority of need is for the victim versus I need help. If you're asking the operator that I need help or we need help, that's unexpected. Please, if you have Madeleine, let her come home. So again, this is giving agency and ability to a 3-year-old to let her come home. It's unusual language. To her mummy, daddy, brother and sister. So here we have audience sympathy building. Without naming the names. As everyone can understand how distressing, so he's having trouble explaining how distressing it is for themselves, and it's the anguish and despair. And here he is asking everyone to understand how distressing, and this is concerning, the current situation is. And it's concerning in so much that at the unconscious level, Gerry is referring to a previous situation, the current situation. Our language comes out through the unconscious, through the Broca area of the brain, where word selection, because we speak at such a rapid pace in conversation, the actual word selection itself is carried out at the unconscious level in the same way as breathing and blinking and growing your fingernails. It's unconscious selection. And here we have a concerning the current situation. So there has been in his mind a previous situation to today. As everyone can understand how distressing the current situation is. So what was the previous situation? We put in a flag and a large one. We ask that our privacy is respected. Our privacy. We ask that our privacy is respected. So this is unusual in a child disappearance because on the one hand, they are doing the press conference, wanting maximum publicity, maximum people looking for Madeleine. And on the other hand, we have a ask for privacy. So we've got a juxtaposition. We have an unusual pattern to allow us to continue assisting the police. We note in their investigation, not our search for Madeleine, but it has become their investigation. But importantly, we have very concerning linguistics that we ask that our privacy is respected to allow us to continue assisting the police. We have to listen to the precise words without changing the meaning. He's telling us that for them to continue to assist the police, we have to respect their privacy. And this is very, very early in Madeleine's disappearance. So this is concerning. We ask that our privacy is respected to allow us to continue assisting the police. So we have on the one hand the press conference, maximum exposure, maximum PR, and on the other hand, if you want us to continue assisting the police, you have to respect our privacy. Yeah, that's probably partly why so many people had a gut feel that something was concerning them. And I think this is part of that. We're hearing a demand that unless it's respected, assisting the police won't continue. Okay. So we're missing some present tense concern for Madeleine's actual state. We're missing a direct address to Madeleine. We're missing the concern for the physical and emotional needs of the child. And in fact, we have the inverted need of the parents first. And we're missing some real-time urgency. Let's just listen to that again with new ears now that we've looked at the statement in more detail.
Words cannot describe the anguish and despair that we are feeling as the parents of our beautiful daughter Madeleine. We request that anyone who may have any information related to Madeleine's disappearance, no matter how trivial, contact the Portuguese police and help us get her back safely. Please, if you have Madeleine, let her come home to her mummy, daddy, brother and sister. As everyone can understand how distressing the current situation is, we ask that our privacy is respected to allow us to continue assisting the police in their investigation. Thank you.
Okay, and also at the end we have a formal thank you. And we note that under Torchlight it was a written statement and notes were involved. Yeah, so this formal thank you again is unusual. So we have, let's look at the pattern distributions. We have We are and us, very little individual I. And we have a progression of how Madeleine is described, from our beautiful daughter Madeleine to the pronoun her. And we would pay attention in future press conferences and interviews to see how much the pronoun movement to, in other words, Madeleine disappearing from the statement. If we see continuous use of just the pronoun rather than the name, then that would match a pattern in inauthentic parents and for missing children. So let's have a look at the critical linguistic patterns. Words cannot describe. So discussing the act of describing rather than directly expressing. And this creates an abstraction layer between the speakers. Madeleine's disappearance. This transforms the action into an abstract noun, removes human agency. Let her come home. Passive construction, so suggesting that Madeleine has agency in her own return. And the current situation avoids saying our daughter is missing, and it creates emotional distance through this abstraction. And also concerningly, it means that there is at the unconscious level a previous situation which we are unaware of. Okay, let's go on to the next statement.
We would like to thank everyone here in Portugal, the UK and elsewhere for all your support during this extremely difficult time for our family. We are pleased that the family liaison officers from Leicestershire are now working closely with the Portuguese police and in keeping us informed. We have no further information regarding the investigation, but appreciate the significant efforts everyone is making on our behalf. We would again like to appeal for any information, however small, that may lead to the safe return of Madeleine.
Okay. Let's take a look at the actual linguistics. So Gerry says, we would like to thank everyone here in Portugal, the UK and elsewhere for all your support during this extremely difficult time for our family. Okay, so here we have sensitivity and cognitive load. This pattern is like a speech, and we saw that it was written down under torchlight in Gerry's notes, I presume. We would like to thank everyone. His daughter is still missing, so here we have ingratiation, which is typical in inauthentic missing children cases, where the parents are thanking the police, thanking the hotel staff, thanking everyone who is attending, thanking everybody in Portugal and the UK and elsewhere. It's the linguistics of acceptance. It's the linguistics of a speech, an acceptance speech. And it doesn't sit well, which again might explain why so many people felt uncomfortable, and why suspicions first arose. For all your support during this extremely, extremely difficult time for our family. So Madeleine, there's an inversion of priority. Madeleine's concern and Madeleine's well-being is secondary to thanking everybody for the support for the family, for our family. So in Gerry's unconscious mind, the family takes priority over Madeleine linguistically. The family being the twins and Kate. We are pleased. This is incorrect language for the trauma and horror of a missing child who has not yet been discovered. We are pleased that the family liaison officers from Leicestershire are now working closely with the Portuguese police and in keeping us informed. So pleased that family liaison officers are working closely with Portuguese police. Pleased about being informed. Do you see how that is concerning? We are pleased. Again, we notice that there's a complete lack of the I pronoun. We have no further information regarding the investigation. So the search for Madeleine has turned into the investigation. It's no longer linguistically a search. It's the investigation now. And we're literally days into the disappearance. Also concerning is he's talking for Kate and himself. We have no further information. Don't ask us any questions and respect our privacy. But appreciate missing pronoun, but appreciate the significant efforts everyone is making on our behalf, not Madeleine's behalf. So it's linguistically incorrect. The focus and priority is the remaining family, not Madeleine, linguistically. So we're starting to get quite an abnormal number of flags in these two short statements. We have to bear in mind that we have little baseline to go on, and we have to bear in mind that there is trauma and there is a foreign country, and there is speech writing, which could be altering the linguistics slightly. That being said, we still have a very large number of flags. We would again, repeated, we would again like to appeal for any information, however small. So this is the language of repeating the sort of statements that you might have heard before on television. It's the language of authorities. It's the language of police. So we put in a flag. Again, by itself, it means very little. We would again like to appeal for any information, however small, that may lead to the safe return of Madeleine. So Madeleine appears back in the statement. The safe return. So we've got an increased urgency, missing. We've got specific details about Madeleine, what she looks like, what she's wearing, what she sounds like, missing. And we have very little emotional language about the child. So some of the unusual features, extremely, here we have cognitive load and sensitivity. It's understandable in the situation that Gerry finds himself. We are pleased. Yes, this is concerning. A positive emotional word, and it's unexpected in the missing child context. It's part of ingratiation, which is always a concern. Portugal, the UK, and elsewhere. Yeah, so it's thanking too many people. In authentic cases, we tend to see frustration, anger, nothing's good enough, why isn't everyone searching? Everybody's a suspect, every guest, every member of staff in the hotel. We see fear, huge disappointment about it wouldn't matter how much the police helped, it wouldn't be enough. But we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing ingratiation and thank you speeches when his daughter is still missing. It's a pattern which we see in inauthentic cases, and it's not a pattern we see in authentic cases. Continued minimization, however small. Do you see in statement analysis, it doesn't matter how small the potential flag. If we see it, we note it. Very often, more often than not, it has no meaning, but we put in the flag. We have no further information. This closes off information flow rather than seeking public help with details. So we're beginning to see the shutdown of any further information, and he speaks on Kate's behalf here as well as his own. We have the privacy request and the shutdown of any further information. But even more concerning, that privacy request, unless it's granted, will affect the level that they will help the police. It's very concerning unconscious language. Significant efforts. I wonder how much they've actually been involved in the search. If you know, do put it in the comments. Working closely and keeping us informed. So we have a focus on procedure rather than actual search urgency. For our family. Yeah, it's the formality creating distance when self-referencing. And also we have a repeated pattern there with the formal name Madeleine rather than a nickname. Yeah, so the gratitude priority is unusual. Let's just see that again.
I would like to thank everyone here in Portugal, the UK and elsewhere for all your support during this extremely difficult time for our family. We are pleased that the family laid...
He did say for our family, I'm presuming, even though my ear alerted me there to, did he say a family? If anybody is an expert in the Glaswegian accent or has better audio, that would be interesting to hear. Let's just hear that one more time.
Time for our family.
For a family. I think it's our.
We're pleased that the family liaison officers from Leicestershire are now working closely with the Portuguese police and in keeping us informed. We have no further information regarding the investigation, but appreciate the significant efforts everyone is making on our behalf. We would again like to appeal for any information, however small, that may lead to the safe return of Madeleine.
Okay. Let's go back to the actual report. So, a lot of gratitude and administrative language versus the actual purpose of the press conference, which is the direct appeal for Madeleine. We have a reduction in her name use, and we have no individual statements. Yeah, the administrative language is going up significantly and the name usage down significantly. Yeah, okay. Let's look at some of the alternative explanations, because we need to be balanced and fair and unbiased. So we do have cultural and social considerations. To some degree, there's emotional restraints due to the British norms, the cultural norms, and the controlled expression. We also have the fact that they are both doctors. Kate is an anaesthetist and Gerry is a surgeon. So we could be seeing some of the formality and clinical detachment because of their profession. We have middle-class communication patterns. The thank you at the end, very formal. Potential disassociation because of the trauma response. So this distancing that we noticed could be through disassociation and emotional numbing. We could be seeing them focus on process as a mental defense against the horror of the situation and possibly shock response. Okay, so we have situational factors. The statements are prepared, they are written in advance. There's the possibility in the second statement especially that we're beginning to see the legal guidance and PR influence. We also note that traditionally it is the mother who speaks, but we're having Gerry is doing the speaking. We do have very little baseline to compare. Future interviews, we will have more baseline. And we have limited sample as well. Okay, so if this was real time and the forensic linguistics and statement analysis was done, we would be finding that there is a requirement for further investigation into the language. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's analysis, and I look forward to speaking with you in the comments.